desert in the great American Southwest. I'm Art Bell.
Slamming into your radio like a supercharged nanoparticle of unobtainium. My name is George Knapp.
I'm Richard Serrett.
This is Connie Willis.
I'm George Noory. Welcome to Coast AM. It's great to be here.
Welcome to Coast PM, the number one unofficial Coast to Coast AM podcast. We are two brothers who analyze the world's largest overnight paranormal radio show known as Coast to Coast AM. My name is Paul, and I'm the guy that listens to this inexplicable radio show here with my brother.
Hey, it's Chris. I'm the Louis Guzman to your Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and that we're journeying to the center of the earth today.
Ooh, Chris, dropping the topic in your intro.
I'm gonna start spicing up a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can't do it.
I love it, and you are correct. We are going to be talking about the Hollow Earth today, and I'm so excited about it. This is going to be a George Noory interview with Rodney Cluff from December 24th, 2004. So we're going way back.
Holy cow! This is the first time we've really focused on the Hollow Earth, right? Like we talked a little bit in Giants. We talked a little bit in Reptoids with our boy Johnny Rhodes, but this is the first time we've really taken a deep dive into the Hollow Earth, and I mean that literally.
Yeah, a very deep dive is what today is going to be.
Do we have the giant crystals in this Hollow Earth?
There will be a giant crystal.
Okay, there's going to be a giant crystal. How about dinosaurs? We have
dinosaurs. Mammoths? Do mammoths count as dinosaurs?
That'll totally count.
Okay, and there's also going to be a monorail. So get excited for that.
Monorail.
Yeah, this Rodney Cluff guy, he was actually planning a full expedition into the Hollow Earth using a Russian nuclear icebreaker ship.
That's so cool.
Which is very exciting. So we're going to talk all about that.
He just went down the hole straight in with the ship?
That was the plan. You just go right into the hole.
Oh, my Lord. Can't wait.
It's very exciting. But before we get to that, Chris, we have to check in with our good friend Tim Banal at the Coast to Coast AM blog.
Tim time!
Today's article, Exorcist warns bizarre Christian spirit board is a trap from the devil.
It always is. How many times do we have to say this on this podcast?
And I can't pass up a good Ouija board article. You know I love Ouija boards.
I know you do. I'm starting to get tired of them.
All right. But this one's a Christian one. It's very exciting because you can talk to Jesus.
Right. Okay. Oh, that is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's a twist. So from the article, a bizarre spirit board that is marketed as a way to speak to Jesus Christ has understandably drawn the ire of a Catholic exorcist who cautions that it is a quote, trap from the devil.
Yeah, dude. Church not going to be happy about that, dude.
Not at all. Father Ernesto Caro reportedly issued the warning last week during an appearance on the program EWTN Nightly News. He noted
the priests are emissaries to God and Jesus, dude. And so if you're taking away their job, you're taking away the only reason they exist, why they have to be celibate their whole lives, at least some of them.
Supposed to be celibate their whole lives.
There you go. Supposed to be celibate their whole lives.
Yeah, dude, we're cutting out the middleman. We're going getting a main line to Jesus Christ.
Mainline Jesus, dude. 100% pure Jesus Christ.
The priest noted that the game is essentially a Ouija board and has been repurposed using Christian symbols, including a cross for the planchette.
Just go.
Of particular concern to Caro is that the Holy Spirit board is sold on Amazon with some rather tantalizing promises that he fears might fool people into communicating with sinister forces.
What are those promises on Amazon, dude?
That you can talk directly to Jesus.
Oh, but that's the promise.
I think it's the biggest promise on it. Yeah, it's on the box. The box literally says talk directly to Jesus Christ.
Can you do like kind of a genie thing with Jesus and get a couple of wishes?
I don't know if you rub Jesus's belly when he shows up. Does he grant you wishes? It could be.
I thought that was the Buddha.
Oh yeah, we'll work on it. I don't actually know. I'll do a deep dive into whose belly we should be rubbing.
More belly rubs.
Described as, quote, perfect for churches, prayer groups, or just getting together with friends, the tongue-in-cheek listing assures prospective buyers that, quote, unlike other spirit boards, this one will never contact evil ghosts or demons, so you can ask your questions with an assured sense of safety.
Hey, guys, you want to come over and talk to Jesus?
It sounds like a really fun infomercial, or like one of those like Nickelodeon commercials when we were kids.
Yeah. And all the kids are like, let's talk to the Christ.
While the product is clearly a satirical take on the Ouija board, Caro insists that it is no laughing matter and expresses dismay that some unwitting individuals may wind up opening a door that could be dangerous should they think that the game is a genuine way to communicate with Jesus.
You know, it's funny. It seems like so often that people are using the Ouija board negatively. It would be an interesting idea of what if it's 100% positive.
Yeah.
You know, we always talked about, if you're going to talk to anyone, talk to one of your relatives who has passed away, right? Like, look for that person if you're going to go to the Ouija board. But I mean, an enlightened figure like Jesus Christ, like the Buddha, like Muhammad, I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe you'll open up a portal to a positive world.
I would like someone to explain to me how it is possible to communicate with Satan, but you can't communicate with like Jesus, or let's even just say a saint, maybe like Peter. Saint. What if I just get Peter?
Dude, Francis of Assisi, that's a good one to reach out to.
Great one. I don't know. I think it should be possible. We'll see. I'll buy it and let you know.
This is making me think about the Ouija board a little bit different. Like 100% pure Ouija, dude.
Yeah.
Posi vibes only Ouija board.
Back to the article. To those who may have already been duped into thinking that the device could actually communicate with Jesus, Caro advised that they immediately dispose of the game as well as repent and ask God for liberation. Although the exorcist's decision to sound the alarm about the Holy Spirit board is no doubt done with the best intentions, one cannot help but wonder if the priest himself is unwittingly doing the devil's handiwork, as his fiery denunciation of the device has sparked headlines around the world and drawn more attention to the product than an actual advertising campaign possibly could. That is a great point.
Yeah, dude. I mean, here's my thing, though. I haven't heard a word about this. I haven't heard a thing about this. So, like, the reach of the church has really suffered in the ensuing decades, dude, because like I got nothing about Jesus Christ Ouija.
But the reach of Coast to Coast PM continues to grow, and that's really what matters.
Continues to grow on a daily basis, and we appreciate you all for that.
So check this out, Chris. Once again, this is an audio podcast, but I do have the $29.95 Amazon Spirit board brought up here, where you can speak directly to Jesus.
That really looks more like Moses than Jesus.
It's very Moses-y. I think that's just God. I think that maybe that's supposed to be just God.
That's God. Okay.
Yeah, it's very
and
old.
This is going to go in the show notes, and you guys can buy your friends a Jesus Ouija.
But the planchette is a cross, which is pretty funny, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good cross. I like you're up in the clouds Ouija, and then they're doing like a weird infinity sign with it, which is weird.
Yeah, and then my other favorite too, because every Ouija board has a goodbye. This one's goodbye says goodbye Jesus. So
you're really only talking to one person, or maybe a Mexican guy named Jesus.
Yeah, that's basically it. I just love that they're that confident about the Ouija board that they're like, no, Jesus is the only one getting through.
No, you're talking directly to Jesus.
Yeah, so pick up your Jesus Christ Ouija board today and get some solid life advice, probably from the big man.
Hey guys, have you ever thought about talking to Jesus Christ? Well, come on down. We're gonna play with the Jesus Christ Ouija, $19.99 on Amazon today.
All right, well, to our episode today, let's dive into the Hollow Earth.
I'm diving deep, dude. And I really do think I'm more the Louis Guzman, and you're definitely more the Dwayne The Rock Johnson, right?
Right now I am, yeah, because I am jazzed. I have been thinking about the Hollow Earth nonstop for weeks since I listened to this episode.
Jazzed, but not jacked.
I could be if I wanted to.
That's what everyone says.
Is that what everyone says?
I could be a lot skinnier if I wanted to.
All right, Rodney
But
Cluff,
I'm Louis
Chris.
Guzman. But I'm Louis Guzman.
Rodney Cluff, the man who is planning an expedition to go inside of the Hollow Earth. So he's going to start off his story about why the Hollow Earth exists and how he got into this naturally with a story about his buddy who was told about a man named Admiral Byrd from a woman. Chris, are you familiar with Sir Admiral Byrd? He's not a sir. I don't know why I said that.
I know. Admiral's good enough, dude.
Yeah.
All right. My God, give him his comeuppance. All right. Don't add more titles.
Mr. Admiral Byrd.
Yeah. I do know about Admiral Byrd, but I will say I'm excited to learn more about him.
So let's jump into the story that has made its way to Rodney Cluff about Mr. Byrd and his adventures in the Arctic. As background, Admiral Byrd, he was an aviator who did fly across the North Pole.
And she told my friend John Gagne that Admiral Byrd, after his Arctic flight of 1947, had come to her and confided in her what he had found up there. She said that Admiral Byrd flew past the ice, came to a continent covered with lush vegetation, saw a mammoth wandering along on the terrain below. She said that he says that they were presently sighted by flying saucer type craft that took control of his airplane and landed him near an inner Earth city. He was taken in and interviewed by a government official of their country, and their concern was that we had just used nuclear weapons to blow up a couple of cities out here at the end of World War II, just the year before. And the message that they wanted him to bring back to our government was that they opposed our use of nuclear weapons.
A good message, at least.
Not a bad one, you know.
That's
can
a
really
nice
get behind
message. Yeah, it's a
really
nice
get behind
message. I don't remember that story about Admiral Byrd.
You may not, Chris, because that's in his secret diary.
His secret diary that only this woman read?
So let's get into it. A little bit of aviation history, if you will.
Yeah,
So,
please.
Richard Byrd was an aviator who claimed to be the first person to reach the North Pole by air in 1926.
Old.
So after he had his flight, he reached the North Pole. He then returned to the United States as a hero, and Congress promoted him to the rank of commander. And he was also given the Medal of Honor by President Calvin Coolidge, which is pretty fun.
Everyone's favorite president, Calvin Coolidge.
Yeah, great one, dude. Great one. Now, whether or not he actually reached the North Pole is actually disputed. It probably didn't happen. He probably was not the first person to actually fly over the North Pole.
Really?
Yeah.
So he may have just made it pretty far up to Canada and then turned around and was like, I threw across the Arctic. It was real cold.
That's almost exactly what happened. So people
Okay.
at the time claimed that his trip was too short based on the speed of his plane, and there's no way that he could have actually made it to the pole and back. And in 1996, his diary was publicly released. I believe it was by The Ohio State University. And it revealed erased but still legible sextant sites that differ from his typewritten report that he gave to the National Geographic Society. So,
nice.
Yeah. Researchers determined that Byrd actually made it 80% of the way to the North Pole before he had to turn back because of an oil leak. And then he faked his data to say that he was the first person to fly over the North Pole, meaning that he wasn't actually the first flight over the North Pole. It was made a few days later by the airship Norwich, who beat him out.
Oh, no way, dude.
Yeah.
So this person that busted their hump to get there has a swindler taking all their credit.
Yeah, pretty much. Byrd just lied. He just made up his readings.
And I'm going to guess that there's nothing in his already made up diary about further made up mastodons walking around and flying saucers, and
So not
a emissary from a government talking to him.
Not quite yet. So that occurred in 1926 and 27. What our friend Rodney was discussing was something that occurred in 1947. So Byrd became famous for being the first person to fly over the pole. But in 1947, Byrd was put in charge of Operation High Jump, which was the largest Antarctic expedition to date at the time.
Yes.
It was ran by the U.S. military.
Okay, this is where I come into my Admiral Byrd lore.
Yeah, it was probably Operation High Jump. That's the really big
Antarctica.
Yeah.
All right.
So the operation included 6 helicopters, 6 flying boats, 2 seaplanes, and 15 aircraft that surveyed a region of the pole about half the size of the United States.
Oh wow! So they surveyed a pretty good piece of it.
A huge chunk. Now, this was where he was keeping a diary, right? In 1984. The Hollow Earth Research Society claims that they were given a secret diary that was written by Admiral Byrd that was dated February 19th, 1947.
Every good leader keeps 2 diaries. You keep the one that you know is getting published, and you keep the top secret one, dude. Everyone knows that.
And that's apparently what he did. And it made its way, I don't know how, to the Hollow Earth Research Society.
There's no like story on how they got it, who gave it to them. It just showed up one day and they're like, look what we got.
Yeah, some guy just gave it to them.
All right, this is giving like some Joseph Smith vibes.
A little bit. So in the diary, it tells how Byrd was flying to the North Pole, right? And he began to see green fields and mountains. And then he heard a voice over the radio welcoming him, specifically saying like, "Welcome, Commander." And it was speaking English, which is peculiar, I'll say. Now, his plane engine shuts off, but he's still flying, right? And then eventually his plane, which is still flying and he has no idea why, just stops moving and then drops down to the ground as if it was like on some sort of elevator, right? Now, for
laser beams, Paul, laser beams.
It was UFOs and laser beams, actually. So UFOs are flying around. He meets with leaders of the inner Earth who tell him that he's concerned about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they said that in 1945, they tried to meet with the outer world, but their flying saucers kept getting shot at by governments up here.
That actually tracks a little bit.
That one would make sense.
That one is dangerously on point.
Now, these inner Earth leaders, according to the diary, said that the outer world humans were destined to destroy themselves, and that when they do, a new civilization would rise up, and the inner Earth would be there to help guide the new civilization to a more productive path.
Are these beings like the Morlocks of like the Time Machine, H.G. Wells's Time Machine, or are these like essentially humans? They just live underground.
Very tall humans that live in the Hollow Earth, not underground though. It's literally inside of a gigantic hollow shell that is the inside of the Earth.
Oh, okay.
So they're on the other side of the crust, but it's not like they're living in caverns.
Okay. All right.
It's a
so
big
they have
open
like sunshine or something? How do they get?
We'll get there. There's a whole inner sun situation we got to go to.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we'll get there. So at that point, Byrd was put back in his plane and he was sent on his way with the message for the inner world leaders. And then Byrd tried to tell the U.S. government this, but was ordered to remain silent, and the secret diary was hidden.
Yeah, dude, shut your mouth. We're making so much money because of weapons.
All right, now, so that is the story of Admiral Byrd, right? And that has kicked off most of the Hollow Earth lore kind of across the board. Important question, though. What does the Hollow Earth actually look like, right? Because Noory's a little curious. Like, how does this function according to the laws of physics if there is an Earth inside of our Earth?
Inside the Earth, suspended in the hollow, is a central sun that emits a solar wind out through the polar openings, causing the auroras to light up above the poles. And that at near about 5 degrees from the poles are situated polar openings that curve gradually into the interior of the Earth. My estimate.
Go ahead, Rodney.
My estimate of the polar openings is that they are about 890 miles from crest to crest, and it gradually curves into the inner Earth.
That's a huge hole.
Giant, massive.
That's a massive hole. Holy crap. And so it curves in, so you're just like, you just kind of subtly go in, so you would never like tip over.
Yeah, and the other thing is you may not even notice that you're in the hollow earth when you go in.
Right, because the hole is so huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It would be the whole horizon.
We got a clip for it. One sec.
Okay.
So with that curvature, though, it's very possible that you could fly into it or even walk into it and you wouldn't even know because it would be ever so slightly, right?
Very, very slightly. The curvature can be detected. And on our voyage to the Hollow Earth expedition, we're going to take gyroscopes that will be able to detect the curvature into the polar opening and help us locate that 90-mile aperture.
Hey, baby, go grab the gyroscopes. We're going to go figure out the curvature of the Earth.
That's the thing, is that the curve that you're taking is so gradual that the only way to know that you're even there is by spinning a gyroscope. And then when your level starts to like fall off of the level of the gyroscope, then you know that you're entering the Hollow Earth's curve.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I want to know more about the internal sun, because this one has got me going. That's the reason we have the Aurora Borealis, dude. I've been lied to my whole entire life.
Yes, because we have an inner sun. It's made of crystal that's blasting like magnetism out and stuff.
You know what, though? Kind of to be fair, I mean, the core and the outer core kind of are like internal suns.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like ultra hot magma, lead, metal, and it circles. And I mean, like, that is the reason why we have the Aurora Borealis. So it's kind of not 100% wrong here.
I think you may be being a little too fair to him.
No, I'm being,
the core's like sort of like an inside sun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hot.
It's hot. It's super duper hot. It's molten metal, dude.
Yeah.
I'm going to give that one to him.
All right. Well, to your question though, because you were asking about who lives inside of there, and it's actual humans who live inside of the hollow.
Okay. They just accidentally got in there?
Wasn't an accident. It's the lost tribes of Israel.
What are the possibilities, Rodney, that also within this hollow earth might be human beings who have somehow decided to live there? Is that possible?
Oh, I am certain that the people that live in the Hollow Earth are not extraterrestrials. They're most of them are from the lost tribes of Israel that migrated into the North Countries over 2,500 years ago and have just progressed faster than we have because they don't have wars and sickness like we have.
The lost tribes of Israel made it into the Hollow Earth after their sojourn out of Babylon?
Yeah. Isn't that great?
They were like, let's sail all the way south.
They got kicked out of Israel. And then they're just like, let's just keep walking. I think they went all the way north.
Okay.
There's a top hole and a bottom hole. So actually, I don't know. They could have gone to either one.
Yeah. Well, it would be easier to go all the way north through like Norway. And then they were like, oh, wow, a giant ice sheet. Maybe let's keep going.
Yeah. And according to his lore, the Garden of Eden is also inside the Hollow Earth. And it's where the seat of King David, where God in the Old Testament said that one of King David's descendants would always sit on the throne. That's where the throne is inside the Hollow Earth. There you go. He solved it.
How did they get this information out? Just to Admiral Byrd? Admiral Byrd's the one who's telling us all this stuff? Because I'm confused.
So Admiral Byrd is used to establish that there is a hollow earth where there's like mammoths and a bunch of crap like that in an advanced civilization. There is another story. This one I was not as familiar with. It's about a man named Olaf Jensen, Chris, a Norwegian sailor.
What a great name.
And Olaf Jensen spent 2 years inside of the hollow earth, and he came back to tell his tale.
2 years?
2 years.
I always wanted to do 2 years in New York City. 2 years in the hollow earth sounds like it would be a little bit more interesting.
A little bit, yeah. Now, before we get into Olaf Jensen's story, just to kind of establish what we're even looking at here, the way that Rodney Cluff's idea works about the hollow earth is very different from the reptilian hollow earth that we talked about in episode 2.
Right.
That hollow earth that John Rhodes talks about is like a series of like giant caverns and stuff that people,
right,
reptilians, are living inside of.
Right.
But Rodney Cluff is describing is Earth itself is actually just a hollow shell. And
right.
that if you walk around and go through the hole in the top, gravity is inside of the crust. So that means that you stick to the shell, whether you're on the inside or the outside. So there's a whole other continent on the inside of the crust of the earth.
Okay.
So it's not like you're in a cavern. It's like it's a gigantic hole that's inside of Earth that you're walking around inside of and just walking on the inner wall of the Earth.
I kind of love the idea of Spaceship Earth being that, like, we create. Well, again, he's not 100% wrong. What gravity is us being pulled down by, he's calling it the crust, but it's the whole weight of the planet.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, I can kind of see how he's making these connections.
Yeah. But that's why the water doesn't just like fall into the hole and disappear.
Right.
It's because it's one continuous thing.
Yeah.
On the crust of the earth.
Yeah.
So you just go over the lip and then it's like you're like an ant, essentially. You just go over the lip and then you go inside and you're still just kind of walking around on the edge.
Yeah, it's like a Mobius strip.
Mm-hmm. Just like that.
It's a Mobius strip Earth.
Now, so we got a guy named Olaf Jensen, right? Norwegian fella back in like the 1850s, accidentally finds himself in the hollow earth. So let's get to his story because that's where a lot of this lore comes from.
Well, that's you said 1855?
It would have been around the 1850s when Olaf Jensen went in there.
So he's before Admiral Byrd.
This was before Admiral Byrd, yeah.
Okay.
In 1829, a couple of Norwegian people, Olaf Jensen and his father Jens, were fishing up north of Franz Josef Land when they noticed a lead through the ice. And they followed this lead northeast of Franz Josef Land and accidentally found their way through the North Pole opening to the inner Earth. Reached the inner Earth and sailed along the coast and went up this big river. They were met by a ship of inner Earth that was coming down the river and were taken in by them, and they lived among them for 2 years. And they related to him that their God that was Jehovah. It's interesting that Olaf Jensen and his father were not Christians.
Right.
They believed in the Norwegian gods of Odin and Thor, which is their ancestors.
Is that popular in Norway?
No.
To still be a pagan?
No, it's not.
Okay.
So 1820 is at the date wrong. What he's talking about is a book called The Smoky God or Voyage to the Inner Earth, which was a 1908 book written by the novelist and Chicago newspaperman named Willis George Emerson.
Never heard of it.
It is incredibly obscure. The book presents what claims to be a true account of the adventures of a Norwegian sailor named Olaf Jensen, talking about him and his dad ending up at the inner Earth. And he tells this story allegedly to Willis while on his deathbed in like 1900. So you can find this book on Project Gutenberg. It's actually not very long, but it is a book that you can access online for sure.
Was the author claiming this to be a real story, or this was a work of fiction, but our I forget our gentleman's name.
Willis George Emerson.
Willis George Emerson took it as truth.
So Willis George Emerson said that it was truth, but it's 1908, and I think it's pretty fair to say it's kind of nonsensical.
Okay.
The other thing to call out is that he very much wrote it in line with like an H.P. Lovecraft short story. So when you think about H.P. Lovecraft and how it's always like, oh, this terrible thing has happened to me, and I'm dictating all the events as I best recall them.
Yeah,
that's very much the style of this quote unquote, true story.
So like that, the pulp, that kind of pulp fiction that was going on around the time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it fits in with what novelists and people writing fiction were doing in 1908 for sure.
Right.
So that's where the story comes from. The other thing to call out is that I looked it up, and Norway has been Christian since like 900 AD, and this was the 1820s. There were not pagans around this time, and Olaf
there probably were some. There probably were some.
There probably were a handful.
Yeah.
Olaf is named after a saint, so that's another little knock there. Saint Olaf is an actual saint in Catholicism. So my guess is that whoever this person is was not actually pagan.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. But I will say, sailing is a great pastime for a pagan. So I will give them that. But I think a lot of Norwegians are sailors and fishermen.
Yeah. A lot of them are fishermen. But Odin Thor has not been widely worshipped since like 1000 AD. So it's not a common practice.
Well, maybe we need to bring it back, Paul.
Oh, maybe we should. I mean, Marvel's doing its best, right?
Oh, God.
All right. So inside the inner Earth, though, there still is an atmosphere. So there still is breathable air. So that's an important aspect of this.
Would there be clouds up there, in there?
Oh, the atmosphere inside is is just like on the outside of the surface of the Earth. Most of the atmosphere is within the first 45 miles, but extends up to about 600 miles as it rarefies towards space. The same on the inside of the Earth. The air would only go up about 45 miles and on up to about 600 miles in a rarefied density.
I can see a whole like 30 to 45 minutes of the show is George just asking, are there trees in there? Yeah. How about grass? Is there grass in there? Oh, okay. Wind. They get some wind and some rain? Oh, okay.
That's literally the show. That's most of the show is him doing that. Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair.
Yes.
Another good one was him asking if they feel our earthquakes.
Do it.
Any inhabitants in a hollow earth? I mean, do they feel our surface earthquakes or anything like that?
Yes, the large earthquakes cause the earth to vibrate like a bell. And a bell is hollow. So that right there is evidence that our Earth is hollow. Whenever there's a large earthquake, causes the Earth to ring like a bell with a period of about 54 minutes. You can find that right in your encyclopedia.
First, I love it rings like a bell, and a bell is hollow, and so that's proof of the hollow earth is that bells are hollow and they ring.
He has a point. Bells are hollow and they do ring.
Take that, science bitches.
That's everything that he does throughout this interview is like that, where just like, and that's also evidence that the earth is hollow because it vibrates the core and it's like a bell.
I went down to the Krispy Kreme and I saw them making the glazed donuts, and a glazed donut, when you bite into it's pretty hollow, and well, the earth's pretty hollow, so that's science right there.
There you go.
It tastes pretty good, George.
There you go.
I like a little sugar with my coffee.
He's proving it. Now, inside we have atmosphere, right? But we also have this inner sun. So let's get into the inner sun and how that works.
Got to know more about the inner sun. Got to.
Then that the people on the surface of the hollow portion of the planet are about 3,000 some miles from the sun, right?
Right.
Wouldn't they burn up? I mean, if we were 3,000 miles from our sun, it's history time for us.
Yeah, but the inner sun is built so that produces just the right amount of heat to produce ideal climate and temperatures on the inside surface of the planet. It's a paradise there.
That was very nice of the planet to do that.
It wasn't that kind.
It's perfect.
It's just designed to be correct, so therefore it's not a problem.
It's just paradise down there, George.
What a tiny little sun it has to be, though, because, like, first off, the Earth is much smaller than the sun. The sun is huge. And then to have a little baby sun inside, but then that sun is also weak enough to where it doesn't just burn you up and it's just like a tropical paradise. That is interesting.
Like I said, the molten core, baby, it wouldn't be nowhere near as hot as plasma.
Well, and there's also a year-round growing season, which is nice because you don't have seasons because the sun's just there. The sun's just hanging out.
I just love seasons.
Well, unless there is potential here, because remember with our flat Earth theory, David Weiss talking about how we have seasons because the sun just kind of like drifts in circles. Maybe the hollow Earth sun kind of shifts up and down a little bit, so you get a bit of a winter or a bit of a summer, depending on the gyration of the sun.
That's a great theory.
Thanks. I should do this. I should be on coast. I don't know what's happening.
You should. The thing is, we've really taken way too much lore in that I think we could be pretty good at this.
I think we could. Let's give it a little bit and we'll see what happens.
I think we could be pretty good at this.
The other cool thing about Inside the Hollow Earth, Chris, is that everything there is giant, right? All the vegetation, all the plants, all the fruits and vegetables, huge.
Yes.
Olaf Janssen reported that everything grows bigger there. Trees grow to 1,000 feet tall. Even the people are from 7 feet to 15 feet tall.
Oh my! Which, the Bible used to describe giants.
And there's lush vegetation there. The vegetation grows like a paradise. Olaf Janssen remarked that some of the apples that grow on the trees in the earth are as large as your head.
We have 1,000-foot trees, and the sun is only 3,000 feet from the humans on the floor of the hollow earth. So these trees are only like 2,000 feet away from the sun.
These trees are a third of the way to the sun.
That's crazy.
That's madness. How do they not burn up?
That's mad. That's craziness. That's some crazy stuff.
And the people are 15.
1,000-foot trees.
And the people are 15 feet tall. I don't know what's going on.
I don't mind the 15-foot tall people. The 1,000-foot trees are insane.
Is that too much for you?
It's too much.
How big must their root systems be?
I would like to eat an apple that was as big as my head, though. That would be kind of a cool thing to do.
Yeah, that would be a good time. All right, so let's get more into these people, Chris, the lost tribes of Israel that are living down there. What's their vibe?
you know the internal dynamics of Hollow Earth societies are like top of my list of lore necessities.
Got to figure it out.
And the people there live to be up to 800 years old with no sickness or disease. It's just a veritable paradise. After spending a year learning their language, he and his father were taken overland in a monorail train to their capital city, which is built around the original lost Garden of Eden. Olaf Janssen described the people of Inner Earth as North European-type peoples that have blonde hair or red hair or brown hair, blue eyes, very tall, very educated, highly advanced in the sciences and in music, very, very musical people.
This man has brought Christianity into this in a very weird way, in a very, very strange way. They're like 800 years old. That's like very Old Testament. Mm-hmm. And then he lost me again with the blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jews.
Some nice white Inner Earth Jews, Chris. When the Jews came out of the Middle East, we all know they had blue eyes and blonde hair.
Everyone knows this.
Everyone knows.
Everyone
It
knows
is known.
that the lost tribe was nothing but blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jews.
Classic.
Yeah, lost me there for sure.
Yeah, he's mixing in a lot of Old Testament stuff, and I think that's a big part of his belief system as well. He's Mormon, so I think he is. Yeah,
that explains the blue eyes and blonde hair, dude. That's a big Joseph Smith thing, dude.
Explains the racism a little bit.
That's cool, loud and clear, brother. You should have started with that, and I wouldn't have second guessed any of this.
Yeah, he is Mormon. I think it plays into a lot of his belief structure of what he thinks is actually going to go on there. And I think that's why he bit in hook, line, and sinker into the Olaf Jensen story. Like, once you believe in the Hollow Earth, if you are prone to believing the Old Testament is literal, the Olaf Jensen story basically says Old Testament's real. It's just all the people that live forever in the Garden of Eden and all the cool stuff is inside of the earth. That's just what you can't find.
Yeah. You're just not allowed to know about it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, cool.
But they also have a monorail. The interesting thing,
monorail.
The interesting thing that connects with John Rhodes, because John Rhodes would always talk about how inside of the Hollow Earth, these reptilian-like creatures didn't have to deal with war or disease. Now, our boy Rodney's saying the exact same thing, and I still don't understand it. What about being inside the earth keeps you protected from war or disease?
You stupid humans on the surface of the planet just getting bombarded by your evil sun when you could go inside the planet and be completely protected by disease and famine.
With the sun that was built for us.
Special.
Famine makes sense because they have a year-round growing season. So you never don't grow food. So that's something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, let's get back to the inner sun. This guy's hopping around all over the place. What keeps the inner sun from just falling over, Chris?
Gravity.
It's a good answer.
It's suspended in the center of the Earth by gravity and also by a ion emission that repels. It repels from all directions, so it keeps it centrally located in the center of the planet.
All right, so there's no danger of the thing smashing into the inside of the planet, right?
No.
An ion emission, George.
What does that mean?
Ions. They're emitting.
How are ions holding a sun in place?
Dude, it's the ions and it's the gravity. That joker ain't going nowhere, okay?
And so when he says it's gravity, I also understand what that means. So is basically he's saying that the inner star is like in a perfect stasis where, like, once it's in the dead center of the hollow earth, then it's being equally pulled in all directions by gravity. Right. So therefore it doesn't move. Is that what we're getting at?
Right. And then I think the ions, I think he's kind of in his mind trying to create, like, when you put two like negatives of a battery together and a kind of, or two negatives of a magnet together and they blast off of each other.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's trying to create with this suspended sun, is that, like, the negatives of the earth and the negative ion emissions of the sun keep it perfectly in stasis in the hollow earth.
Yeah, you just made that make sense. Okay. All right, I'm here for it. I'm believing it more and more.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy with that response, dude. I don't know how happy I should be that I totally figured out this insane man's thinking.
Yeah, that doesn't speak well for the how well your brain's doing, but that's okay. Now,
that's not good.
Here's the great thing about this, Chris, is that you may think, okay, the Earth's hollow, but there's no way other planets are hollow, right?
I figured they were all hollow, actually.
They're all hollow.
They're all hollow.
Can you assume, Rodney, that if the Earth formed this way, other planets form the same way?
Absolutely. On my website, I have a picture of the Hubble Space Telescope image of the North Polar opening of Mars. But on this one certain day, there was hardly any cloud cover. And you can see down inside the polar opening, it looks like a giant crater. Mercury, curiously, is rolling around the sun on its side with its polar opening pointing towards the Earth. And scientists, astronomers have seen this bright white spot in the middle of Mercury. I'm wondering what it is. And all it is the polar opening of Mercury and the inner sun shining out through it. And we can see it.
Stupid scientist. It's a hole. Do you have this photo on Mars that he's talking about? Were you able to find it?
No, I couldn't figure out what he was talking about. Nothing that I could find looked like a hole in the top of Mars.
And it wasn't on his website?
No, his website's pretty much defunct at this point.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah. So I don't really know what he was talking about there. I haven't been able to find any videos or images of, Mars or Mercury having holes in it. If anyone does have those, c2cpmpod@gmail.com. Now, the rest of the solar system, Chris, is also hollow. So he goes into the whole shebang about how all this works.
This is how God makes planets.
Apparently it is. And they all have stars inside of them.
And they all have little baby stars inside of them.
The reason how our Earth has a magnetic field is because the inner sun is a crystal ball that rotates at a different speed from the shell and has a electric charge, as well as the shell of the Earth has electric charge. And these two charges rotating about each other creates this magnetic field. And I did a recalculation of all the gaseous planets, including the sun, that if they are hollow and have a shell that's 10% of the diameter of the planet, they would all be solid. My calculation for the density of the sun is that it's 2.6, which indicates that it is a crystal ball.
Do you have other scientists, Rodney, who accept this theory about the hollow Earth? Scientists now.
I don't know of any.
None.
I would pay good money to see those calculations that he was doing, because I guarantee you they're gibberish.
He said that he did calculations of the sun and said that its mass is 2.5, which indicates it's a crystal ball.
Right.
What does 2.5 mean?
2.5 units, Paul. 2.5 units.
What does that mean? And why does that mean it's a crystal ball?
Because, Paul, 2.5 always clearly means crystal.
Apparently. I'm just a dumb science bitch for trying to figure out what he's talking about.
No, dude, 2.5.
Dude,
crystal.
What do you think his calculations are? Like, I feel like he's just like scribbling frantically on a notepad, and it's just like random numbers.
Oh, it's gotta be. It's gotta be almost complete bupkis. But I do love his absolute truth to George being like, oh, not one scientist believes this.
Not a single one.
Not a single one has called me and said, hey, bud, you're really on to something here.
Well, and the great part is he doesn't seem to think it's a problem that not a single scientist is buying into this.
Well, why would they, dude? They're trying to keep the holes that lead us to the center of the Earth hidden from us because of the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, they gotta keep it secret. Apparently, the government does know about this, and they are trading technology potentially with the inner Earth world. So that is something to be aware of as well.
So is this the explanation as to why not another nuclear bomb has been dropped? Because they seemed a little ticked off about the first two.
Rodney doesn't connect that, but he should.
Okay.
Because I think that would be a fun little addition here. But at no point does he claim that it actually had an impact on our policies,
relations,
on the outer worlds. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But well, I mean, it is somewhat because we're trading technology with them.
Yeah, it potentially does.
I mean, that's a policy. That's a public policy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a secret policy.
but it's still a policy.
Yeah.
I mean, trade is a relationship and an exchange of goods, and things have to happen in between those. You know, what is getting exchanged? What are we sharing with them? What are they sharing with us? Why are they sharing those things?
Yeah.
That's policy, baby.
That's policy. And here's the thing. They are also super advanced because they haven't had to deal with war or famine. So let's get into just how advanced they are.
So how many years do you think they are ahead of us technologically? 100? 50?
Oh, no. I think they're at least 2,000 years in advance of us. Galileo started the scientific revolution only 300 years ago.
Right. So they're way ahead of us then.
Oh,
How did they get this technology?
They've been progressing since they went up there 2,500 years ago, so without any wars or disease, they were able to progress a lot faster continuously.
So, Paul, there's actually a theory that warfare is one of the main reasons we've progressed so far so quickly. So he's actually kind of going against the tide, saying that because there were no wars, that they were able to technologically advance so much more quickly. I thought that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I think he also makes a really weird statement, and he keeps doing this, how they had us, they realized what science was way before us.
Right,
So therefore they're way more advanced. I'm like, we were still advancing before we had the scientific method, right?
Right.
The scientific method is just like a more efficient way of going about it. But it's like we went from bronze to iron, like we were still doing stuff, like we had aqueducts, like we figured some shit out.
You ever seen porcelain, baby? Come on now.
Yeah.
That's for real.
I don't know, man. It's a weird statement, just be like, well, they didn't have war and then they had a scientific revolution earlier, so they're like 2,000 years ahead of us.
I mean, to be fair, he has the same idea of science as the people who say they believe science.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. All of this is leading up to the fact that he is doing an expedition to the Hollow Earth, Chris. So let's get into his expedition.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this expedition that is planned. Exactly when is it planned?
But Steve Curry has been taken satisfied explorers all around the world for over 30 years, 250,000 people he says he's taken, mainly river rafting. And he wanted to know if we could put together an expedition to the Hollow Earth, and wanted to know where I thought the most likely location of the North Polar opening is. And we're inviting anybody that's interested, as scientists, explorers, tourists. This ship, the Russian nuclear icebreaker, is one of the most powerful ships in the world, 70,000 horsepower. It cuts through the Arctic ice like butter.
So anyone could have joined for this, Chris.
Was there a real call for people to join this expedition?
Oh yeah, there's a whole website. This was what this episode was him calling for people to join the expedition.
And you could buy tickets or what?
Yeah, so you would buy a ticket for the voyage. It cost $20,000, and they were renting a Russian nuclear icebreaker ship that could crush through the ice and get to the polar opening.
Oh my God. Please tell me you have the information about this once we're finished.
Oh yeah, no, dude, he lists the whole itinerary.
Okay.
Trip.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Because they planned every bit of the trip out, right? It was going to be about a 24-day trip, and they were going to go inside the Hollow Earth, they were going to meet with people, and they're going to go on the monorail, and they're going to come on back.
You had to go to Russia, though, right? Or did they leave from America?
They were departing from Russia, so you did have to fly to Russia.
Oh, right. You had to get to Russia. You had to pay $20,000 to get a seat on the voyage to the journey to the center of the Earth.
Yes.
And people took them up on this.
Apparently, people were taking them up on this.
Okay, just keep going.
All
I
right.
want to hear the itinerary.
Let's get to the itinerary.
This cutter, this Russian cutter, goes how fast? How many knots?
It goes about 12 knots through ice and about 19 knots through open ocean.
19 open ocean. So it could take you another 30, 40 hours, I think, once you're in the curvature to be able to see the sun.
Yeah, our itinerary is that we will start from Murmansk, Russia, where's the port of these nuclear race icebreakers, and it's about 1,000 miles of open ocean before you start to get to the ice, just north of the Franz Josef Land, and then another 400 miles to the pole, and then we would have another 500 miles of ice as we're going in the polar opening before we get to open ocean.
You got to give it to the Russians, dude. If you got enough money, you can do anything in Russia.
That was the first thing I thought. Because this is a government ship,
yeah,
but you can rent it.
Right. Yeah. Of course, there's a Russian general being like, you want to do what? You're going to sell it for how much? Yeah. You can borrow one of our nuclear icebreakers to go to the center of the earth. Sure. You just got to pay me $500,000.
Can you imagine the crew? Because this was a fully staffed crew. There were like hundreds of people that would need to be in this crew for the ship to run. Can you imagine being one of them and just having all these like idiot Americans come on saying that they're looking for a hole in the North Pole?
Dude, it probably broke up the doldrums, and the admiral's thinking, well, I just got somebody to pay for a training exercise.
Yeah. We just got.
You know what I mean?
Dude, it's probably not even paying for a training exercise. It was probably buying him a boat, dude.
Right. No, definitely. But my immediate thought is wasn't that like the first person into space was through a Russian or a first non-astronaut, a first like tourist in space?
Yeah.
Was through a Russian spaceship.
You're right. It's basically the same thing. You just give them enough money, they'll let you tag along.
Yeah.
So I'll give
you gonna give us how much money? Yeah, you can go into space.
Yeah, that was a billionaire. I think he was an American billionaire.
Yeah. You can go into space. Yeah, center of the earth. Sure.
Let's do it. How much money are you giving me? Let's do it.
Let's go.
The rest of the itinerary. So let's get through Rodney's continuation here.
Yeah, our itinerary is to go into until we find the inner continent, which is about halfway through the polar opening, and then try to find the river that Olaf Jensen sailed up called the Heidekel. We will go up this river to the port city where he was taken in, called Jehu, and there we'll try to take an inner earth monorail train to their capital city at the Garden of Eden to visit the palace of the king of the inner world.
Let's hope they're friendly.
Most of the time, when you go into another country unannounced with military technology, they don't take too kindly to that.
Yeah, probably not. But that's okay.
Did he somehow send a warning to the inside earthers?
No, he said that they were just super friendly and nice, and that it wasn't gonna be a problem.
That's cool.
He was very confident that this would not be an issue.
Yeah. Admiral Byrd had such a positive experience. Why wouldn't we?
Now, if you go to the website for this trip, which he promotes on the episode, it's called voyagehollowearth.com. It's still around. You can still access the website and see the full itinerary for the planned trip.
Okay.
So on the itinerary, you pay $20,950 for this voyage, and then you're going to get your own room on the icebreaker.
Got that in the back pocket.
Yeah, good to go.
Good to go.
I mean, to see the Hollow Earth, it would be worth it. I'll be honest.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Now, from the itinerary, day 1, depart from Moscow, Russia. You will need to arrange your own airfare to Moscow. So the $20K does not include
Doesn't cover airfare. Okay.
Which is a bummer.
That is a bummer. All right.
Day 2, arrive in Moscow, and you'll be staying at the Hotel Rossiya, which is located next to the St. Basil's Cathedral. Spend the rest of the day sightseeing in Moscow.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah.
We have a couple of tour guides. You're going to have to pay for all of that, too.
Yeah, you figure that part out as well.
You figure that part out.
Day 3, finish your sightseeing of Moscow in the morning. You will take an afternoon flight to Murmansk, Russia, where we will board the Russian icebreaker Yamal.
Oh my dude, this is sounding sketchy already.
I think it sounds so pleasant. I would totally take this cruise.
Keep
I would have
going.
paid $20,000 for this. This is
Keep going,
great.
keep going.
Days 4 through 7. Enjoy yourself en route to the North Pole on the Yamal.
Okay. All right.
Day
I mean
8.
that would be insane. I mean that would be an insane trip for anyone, I think, to just be taking an icebreaker through the North Pole, dude. That would be nuts.
That would be an awesome time. I'm telling you, I think it is worth the 20,000. Like for real. Just for that part. Day 8, spend the day at the North Pole and even call home to talk to family or friends.
Hey, Paul, I'm calling you from the North Pole.
We're about to go in the polar opening. It's so exciting.
That's so cute, dude. Call your friends and family from the North Pole.
They also promised to call George from the North Pole.
Yes.
With their satellite phones.
Now you keep on saying a lot of things that make it sound like this didn't happen.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
No, they did find the hole. You don't remember the Hollow Earth people that found the Hollow Earth?
I thought they at least took the boat trip, but it sounded like they didn't even take the boat trip.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Days 9 through 11. Start the search for the North Polar opening to the inner continent.
I thought you just ran into it and you started going into the hole.
So they wanted to test it out, right? Just the tip. They wanted to kind of like go in with the gyroscopes and then come back out. And then
You have to come up with a different way to describe it, Paul. Oh my God.
And they want to come back out, let everyone know they found it, and then go in, right? So
so they're just playing with the outside of the hole.
Yeah, just we're just touching the rim. Days 12 through 14. Once found, travel up the Hiddekel River to the city of Jehu.
He has names for these places.
Yeah, that's the best part about this. He knows the entire geography of the inner Earth.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Jehu. Dude, that is a Mormon ass name for a place.
Yeah. Days 15 through 16. Take a monorail to the city of Eden to visit the palace of the king of the inner worlds.
So they're way more enlightened than us, but they still have a king.
They still have a king, but they do have apparently really solid public transit. So that is a plus for the
Hey, better than America.
Well, and they have to have a king because that's where the descendant of King David lives.
Right.
So you gotta have
right. So you gotta have a king.
Yep.
That's an interesting point about the public transportation. I wonder if our intrepid travelers also had to pay for the monorail system once they got into the Hollow Earth, or do you think that was free?
I think it's free the way he was talking because we wouldn't have appropriate money for that. Or maybe someone would cover you. Maybe someone would cover
you. Welcome dignitaries of the outer planets.
Welcome Rodney Cluff of the outer Earth.
Yeah.
Here's your free monorail trip. Day 17 to 18. Return back to the city of Jehu on the monorail. We will then continue our journey through the North Polar opening on board the Yamal for the return trip home. Day 19 through 23, enjoy the trip back to Murmansk. And day 24, catch a flight from Murmansk to Moscow. Then you catch your connecting flight back to your hometown.
It sounds like a great itinerary. I mean, you're absolutely right. It probably would be worth $20,000 to do all that.
Yeah, and they did have a backup plan. If they did not find the hole to the inner Earth, there were a series of islands around, I guess, the Arctic where people have found mammoth bones that they were going to explore instead to see if they could find evidence of the Hollow Earth there.
That would have been pretty intense too. Like getting to take home a mammoth bone. That's a top level thing I would love to do in my life.
Yeah. Well, the bad news here, though, Chris, they were supposed to go around 2006, 2007. Rodney had partnered up with Steve Curry to do this, who sadly passed away in 2006. Quoting from the website, as a result, all future trips have been canceled.
So he was the money bags.
Yeah, and he was the expedition guy. He was only like coordinated expeditions previously.
Okay.
So he was the guy that was actually going to manage the whole affair, and he died in 2006.
Oh, so it just never was able to materialize.
It
even
never
later
happened,
than
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it never happened. After Steve Carey died, it just ended. Yeah.
What happened to all the people who paid for tickets to go? Did they get their money back?
I like to think they got their money back. He was actually doing installment plans where you pay $5,000 every 6 months starting in 2004.
Okay.
So I haven't heard online of anyone not getting their money back.
Okay. Good. Dang, dude. What a disappointing end.
I know. That's most of the Hollow Earth stories, Chris, have very disappointing endings.
Yeah, man. I at least was hoping they were going to get to drive around in that nuclear icebreaker, because that would have been intense. Just alone would have been a great story.
Like, I wish I could have found clips of them calling George Noory from the North Pole, being like, well, we got the gyroscopes app, but we just can't seem to find the hole.
He would have done an episode.
He
would have done an episode.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you got to do an episode call in from the North Pole.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That would have been a top level thing for Coast.
Yeah, we would cover it for sure.
Yeah, that would have been a classic for sure.
But alas, they never made it.
Bummer.
But that is the story of the Hollow Earth, Chris. Full of monorails, giants, huge trees, inner suns, and kings sitting on thrones.
It's a Mormon fever dream, dude. I mean, that's what I think that may be what I titled this episode, The Mormon Fever Dream, Journey to the Center of the Earth.
On a scale of 1 to 5 giant apples the size of your head, what do you give the Inner Earth story?
I had a lot of fun. I had a blast, but I'm giving it like a 2. 2 giant head-sized apples, because this was insane. This was crazy. I mean, the lore didn't really work. He definitely lost me with the blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jews that walked all the way there somehow, and then the internal sun, and having the names for all the all the rivers and cities. It was just way too much Joseph Smith for me, dude. And that's always going to get like a 2, maybe a 1.5.
That's fair. I'm going to give it a 2 as well. I loved how earnest this guy was. Like,
he really was. He may have really believed a lot of this stuff.
I think he fully believed all of it. Like, there's so many aspects of it, and he's just unfazed by anything about this. Like the fact that not a single scientist believes it. Like, he does not care, because he's just in it, dude, and he's ready to go on this trip.
It was Jason the Horse vibes, dude, for sure.
Yep, it was. And the thing that I honestly respect about it, though, is that not only does he believe this crazy thing, but he is willing to actually take the trip to try and find the hole. It's like the flat earther who blew himself up on a rocket trying to like get high enough to show that the earth is actually flat. You know, the man's dedicated.
Yeah, that's dedication, dude. Dedication to the craft. And we don't get that kind of dedication these days, dude.
We don't. I'm definitely not
money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anybody taking a journey, even a fake one that didn't actually end up happening. Maybe calling it a fake one was a little too harsh, but they planned the trip.
Yeah.
You don't hear about that.
You don't. Well, that was our Hollow Earth story. We did not do housekeeping at the front end, so if you do have any thoughts, c2cpmpod@gmail.com is our email address. You can find us on Twitter at c2cpmpod or our subreddit Coast to Coast PM. And if you like us, please take like 2 seconds and drop us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's the easiest way to help out the show, and you can also subscribe to get our episodes that we drop every Thursday. And lastly, you can support us on Patreon by following the link in the show notes, where you'll get ad-free episodes and early access to episodes. And that'll be the show. We'll see y'all next week.
All conspiracy, all the time. Later.